What if some of your unhelpful patterns, like overreacting, doubting yourself, feeling stuck, were never really you to begin with? What if you could finally step into the confident, secure, and deeply connected version of yourself that's been there all along? Hi, friends. I'm Gem Fadling, and this is the Unhurried Living Podcast, where we inspire you to rest deeper, live fuller, and lead better. Today, we're talking about the path to true emotional freedom with Michelle Chalfant, the creator of the adult chair model. If you've ever felt trapped by old patterns or wondered why change feels so hard, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Michelle Chalfant, therapist, coach, and host of the Michelle Chalfant Show, a podcast with over 10 million downloads. Michelle has spent decades helping people break free from limiting beliefs and patterns that keep them stuck. Her adult chair model offers a powerful framework for understanding our emotional and psychological development, blending spirituality and psychology in a way that's both practical and transformative. In this episode, we'll explore what it means to truly live from the adult chair, how to release the fears and wounds of the past, embrace your worth, and step into life with greater confidence. Whether you're navigating difficult relationships, struggling with self-doubt, or simply longing for a deeper sense of peace, this conversation will offer insights and tools to guide your journey. Let's talk about what it really means to engage your life from the adult chair. Well, Michelle Chalfant, thank you so much for saying yes to the Unhurried Living Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here with you and have this conversation.
Wonderful. Well, we've already been sort of chatting off the mic for a bit, and I already told Michelle that I knew that she was going to feel like a friend because that's how she felt to me when I was listening to her podcast for years and watching her on Instagram and then reading her book. So I think this is going to be really delightful.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
That's such a compliment. I was said to you, I was like, wow, I don't know who else to be. So I'm just going to be myself.
I think that's all you can do.
I'm not
That's
different.
all you can-
On air, off air. This is really how I am, even with my husband and kids. Like, you got me right here.
This is it. I really do love that and appreciate that. So why don't we dig into this? I thought since the book, it's called The Adult Chair, I have an advanced copy here. Your book is probably going to be out by the time this airs. You've got the real one. I got the advanced copy. But I love this model so much because in a way it simplifies something that could be complicated. You know, all these ways we're trying to do our inner work. And so it's called the adult chair, but you actually have 3 chairs.
Mm-hmm.
And so before we dive into those, I'm wondering if we could start with a more broad question, actually. And that is this. Why is it important to be open to transformation over the course of time? Right? And why does it matter that we have tools to help us make our way?
Oh, boy. Why is it? Let me start with the first one. Why is it important that we are open to transformation? I believe that as human beings, our soul is here to grow and evolve and change and transform and then do it all over again. We think we were talking about this. We think we reach a place in time like, okay, I'm good. I have been to therapy, coaching, whatever it might be. I've done my work. I'm done. No, we're not. Now, I will say this. I do believe that the more we look at our inner world, the more tools that we tend to accumulate, which makes our life become easier. It's just easier. I find that my life now, I'm in my late 50s, is easier than ever before. And I would not have said that in my 20s. I would not have said that in my 20s or my 30s, honestly. But now it's really pretty easy. It's pretty easy. And I say that because I live more in balance now than ever before. When I'm triggered, I know what to do. I set healthy boundaries. I do all the things that are in this adult chair book, but I really practice them and learn them. And tools are important, but we incorporate tools into who we are, and then it just becomes who we are, and we become these new beings. And then again, we start over. We have another trigger, and then we work on that. We just keep expanding into these greater versions of self along our life path.
Love that. Yeah. I had shared with you earlier around 40-ish is when I engaged deeply in therapy. And there was a big turning point for me in finding that inner confident adult who could come in and make some new kinds of decisions about
Right.
things. And things since then, like you said, things aren't perfect. And I do many laps around the trees,
Mm-hmm.
but it is with greater ease because there is a confidence that appeared almost out of nowhere. To me, it wasn't like I chased confidence. It was like a fruit. And then I got to enjoy it. And that was amazing. And then you can make your way, as you said, around the tree a few times more, which we're still doing.
I love that. And it's funny because let's talk about confidence for a moment, but you can either, Google it or go to ChatGPT now. How do I become more confident? Right. And then we practice these traits or these ways that we become more confident, right? We challenge ourselves, we do all these things, or we do our inner work and we get to know our true self again because we knew it once. When we were born, we all knew who we were. We knew who we were. And then we get covered up by masks, by untruths, by wounding, all those things. And we disconnect from who we truly are. And the more work we do, we uncover, we take layers off. I do a lot of live work and I love live events. And when I have people come up on stage with me, I go, okay, let's talk about all the wounding we have. And I take these big pieces of fabric. I'm very experiential. I like to do that. And I cover people up. So I'll say, I have shame, and it's like black fabric. And this is, I'm not worthy. And this is, I'm not this. And then someone's sitting on stage and they're all covered up with this stuff. I'm like, yeah, but the real you, when I pull up all the fabric, I'm like, they're right under there. So the more we peel back these layers, the more we become and remember who we truly are. And things like confidence and boundaries and speaking up for ourselves and taking responsibility, they become natural. It's like out of nowhere. I've heard this from so many people over the years. They're like, how am I starting to set boundaries? I've never taken a boundary course. I'm like, well, you're learning how to feel your emotions. And that leads down this pathway of stepping more into your true self again. So really a beautiful journey we're on.
I love it. Well, we're going to get to boundaries for sure. We're going to make our way through the chairs, and then we're going to talk about some really cool things. But I remember when I first started understanding boundaries, and the mindset shift I think I had was that I actually know what I want and don't want. It means I know how I want to be treated and how I don't want to be treated. And again, I felt like all of that was somehow a fruit of the inner work that had been done. And then I was capable of asserting myself. So to me, I'm fascinated by this. I actually love to talk about transformation. I don't know why, but I've always been fascinated by the fact that we get to change over the course of our entire lives. And that it's in a way, it's an adventure, even though it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. We're not going to lie. It's hard. But the fact that we get to change, the grace of being able to continue to transform and to shed things and to embrace things, I think that's a gift. I like it.
It's contrast. It's why we're here. It's light and dark, right? So we get to experience ourselves as someone that lacks confidence. And then we step into confidence. It's the contrast of, oh, wow, I got to experience this. And now I get to experience this. How beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if you might be willing to take us first. I do want to dig into each chair a little bit, but maybe is there an overview version that you could give us? What are the 3 chairs? Kind of what are they? And then I'd love to talk about each one.
So the model itself, to summarize it's a model that teaches people who they are today and how they got this way. Now, again, it's not this horrible journey of dragging you through life or anything like that, but you really do have this higher understanding of, wow, this is why I don't set boundaries, or this is why I have relationship issues and all these things. So the way that we do this, the way that I introduce the chairs or the whole model is, we're all born, right? So we're born, and from age 0 to 6, we live in what I call the child chair. So the child chair is the part of us that experiences, we're all children. So as children, we all experience and learn about our emotions. So we learn all about sadness and fear and I'm not lovable and I'm not wanted, and happiness and bliss and joy and all those things. We learn about needs, true needs, not I need a lollipop. That's a want. A need is I need you to tell me, mommy, that I'm lovable. I need a hug. I need all of these things, right? As children, if I'm a baby and I'm crying, I need to be held. So we learn about reaching for what we need, and then do we get it or not, right? So that's where some of the wounding could happen. But anyway, so true emotions, needs, spontaneity. Think about the age 0 to 6, from that age span. Vulnerability, intimacy, holding a little baby. Gosh, that's the most intimate moment. You're nestling with a little baby and smelling them. They all smell so good. We learn about passion. We learn about all these creativity, joy, all of these things happen in this, what we call the child chair. And then and the other thing that is so mind blowing to me is from the age of 0 to 6 is when we create the roadmap for the rest of our lives, which is just absolutely insane to me. It's like, wait, what? So everything that we experience as children, age 0 to 6, we experience, absorb everything, and place it basically on a roadmap that we then navigate from for the rest of our lives. So when we have relationship issues, when we have issues with holding down a job, when we have issues with anxiety, depression, whatever it might be, what we really need to do is look at this roadmap. What the heck is on this roadmap? And there is a beautiful way to get there, which we're going to talk about. Triggers. That's a little, anyway. Yes. But we have to be mindful that, let me give you an example. If I'm 5 years old and I run in the house and I'm so excited, I have a finger painting that I did in kindergarten. And I run into my mother's bedroom because I'm so thrilled. I want to show her my finger painting that I did today in kindergarten. And she's in bed and I flip the light on and I go, mommy, 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 look at the finger painting that I did. I'm so excited. Look, look, look. And I'm screaming because I'm so excited to show my mother. And she sits up and screams at me and tells me to turn the light off and might swear at me or whatever the heck she says. And immediately I'm covered in shame. I feel horrible. And she says, get out of my room and close the door. And I grab my picture and my head goes down and I walk out of the bedroom. I don't have a prefrontal cortex to say to myself, oh, mommy's got one of those migraines. That's why she's upset. It's not me. It's not me. We instead make up and put on our roadmap for future use. It's me. There's something wrong with me. For example, I'm too loud. I'm not lovable. And then maybe later on, mommy gets out of bed because her migraine's gone. And my sister gets home from 3rd grade and she brings home something from her school. And my mother gets excited. So then I think, oh, there must be something wrong with me. And she loves my sister more. Like all of these beliefs we take in and then drop on this roadmap. So as far as stages go, this one is so, so, so important because it creates the roadmap for the rest of our lives. Around the age of 7, we transition then into what we call the adolescent chair, which means pre-adolescence, adolescence, post-adolescence. So that goes from about 7 to 24 years old. This is where the ego is really coming online and separating us from that true self even more. We are becoming what we would call ourselves, our identity. So I would be Michelle, you are Gem. And the problem with that is that we're moving further away from, or further into separation from true self and in more into the false self. So based on the roadmap, again, I'm building a persona that's lovable, that's acceptable, that is accepted into the tribe or family where I'm living, or community or family, extended family. So I start to change who I am. I change who I am in order to make myself lovable and acceptable for you, by you. I want to make sure that you love me and accept me. I do this with my friends. I'm going to do this with my family and siblings. So this is where I was talking about that fabric. We start to overlay who we are. Who am I? So I start to cover up some of the authentic qualities to who I am and cover up who I am and who I really am and become who I am not. These are then, from here stems the parts. So you've done parts work. I do something called more spiritual parts work. I like to work with the energy of the parts, but it's parts work and at the base of it. So this is where the inner critic is formed, the judger, the blamer, all of those things. And this, again, the ego's not bad. And so many of us think the ego's horrible. And when you hear that term, people go, oh, I don't have an ego, or I don't want an ego. We all have an ego. God gave us an ego for a reason, like to give us this experience of separating from self. But what we want to do with the ego is balance the ego and create a healthy ego. And we do that with raised awareness. So it's not that it's bad. It's that without awareness, it becomes out of control. That's the ego we don't want, right? So the ego's job is just to keep us safe and alive. And it's based in fear. So it does it from not the highest perspective. That's the problem with the ego. But with the higher self, with our conscious self, we can balance it out. No problem. So what happens when we're around 25 is we then move into what we call the adult chair. If we had parents or caregivers that modeled for us what a healthy adult looks like, feels like, and what the experience of a healthy adult is, which would be, I live in the moment. I'm compassionate with myself and with you. I am patient. I am kind. I am able to process my emotions. I feel my emotions. When you come to me, Gem, and you're my daughter and you're having a bad day, I don't fix it. I don't tell you to go have a chocolate cake. I don't scream at you and tell you to stop feeling. I don't tell you it's no big deal. I actually am able to sit with you and let you then process your emotions. I'm okay because I know what to do with my own. So adults that are in their adult chair can do all these things. We set healthy boundaries here. We take responsibility. We manage our triggers. Again, have self-compassion. So that is basically the adult chair model in a nutshell. And the thing is, again, is that most humans, I find, in 25 years of working with clients, we go through life from this adolescent, really, perspective. And we continue to grow into adults physically, but emotionally, quite a bit, if not most or all of the time. We are living from an adolescent perspective. Even though I'm 50 years old, I am showing up as my adolescent, which doesn't mean I'm a big fat ego as people perceive an ego. It could mean I'm having too much wine every day. It could mean I'm yelling at my kids or my husband every day. It could mean these things. That's from the adolescent. It's again, it's not horrible. It's just unhealthy. And honestly, the perspective of the adolescent is an average age of a 12 to 13-year-old, emotionally speaking. So that's where, when we get the idea, I'm having a really bad day, I'm going to go grab ice cream. I'm going to binge out on Netflix. It's like, that's adolescent. Because what would a 12-year-old say if you're having a bad day? Right? Yeah. They would say, let's go eat. For sure. Again, I the adolescent part of us is saying, well, when you had that emotion, when you had that fight with your partner the other day, it really helped when you had a glass of wine. Have another glass of wine. Have another glass of wine. Have another glass of wine. You know, all of that. Or have more cake, more cake, more cake. Or go, distract yourself. So it doesn't know what to do with emotions. Your adult does. So the goal of the adult chair is to help us to move, grow, cultivate into this beautiful adult chair, or this healthy adult person that we all have inside. Capital S self, the adult self with a capital S, which is your true self. So we do that by, the second part of the book is called I Created the 5 Pillars, based on, again, 25 years of people coming in and me kind of saying the same thing, teaching the same things over and over again. I thought, wow, there's really something here. If people can really get these 5 pillars, they start growing their adult pretty darn quickly, and everything starts changing. Their relationships with their relationship with self. So things like we talked about, the confidence level goes up, self-worth, self-love, all of that starts to rise. And guess what? Relationships with others starts to change. So it's not an outside job. It's an inside job. So the whole book really is an experiential journey of transformation of self. That's what the whole book is about, because it's filled with client examples, experiences, journaling prompts, all the things to take the reader on a journey to help them to transform their life.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for that overview. And you're right. I mean, the book, there are so many prompts in there. And I mean, extensive, like you can't just journal these in 5 minutes. I mean, you've given us some really amazing, beautiful questions that would take you on who knows how long of a journey, but you did.
Yeah.
It's very in depth.
Thank
And I
you.
love,
I appreciate it.
well, and I think I said before, I mean, the tone of who you are comes through the book.
Mm,
Of course, the stories are there. All of the prompts. And I think we talked about this before. There's a practicality, I think, that we both share. Like what can I do? How can I make my way forward? It's not, there's no theories in here. It's like, how can I change? So you're giving us the tools. I'm wondering if now that you've given a beautiful overview, can we just go back? Let's just go
mhm,
back one at a time. I
mhm,
want to go back to the child share because one of the things that really helped me, because I have done parts work
mhm.
before and it helped me, but the way you do it, you broke it down even further where there's just three.
Yeah.
And then with the child share, you said that was the seat of the emotions, and the
Mhm,
adolescent share was actions and thoughts. And
mhm,
then you've got the executive function of the adult share. That having that framework in my mind actually helps me as well. But I want to back up to the
mhm.
child share. And in that chapter or that section, I think you talked about the shadow a bit.
Yeah.
And I
I love
thought
the
maybe
shadow. My gosh, I
the
love it.
shadow. I know not everybody loves the shadow. I'm wondering, can you describe the shadow and tell
Mhm.
us how that shadow work can benefit? How can it help?
Oh my gosh. It transformed my life. It transforms all of our lives when we're able to look at the shadow. So let's talk about what it is. The
Yeah.
term that Carl Jung, I think, came up with was the shadow self, which is the unconscious mind. It's where we store all that stuff that we don't really want to feel. So let's go back to the child share. And what happens is, and I believe Carl Jung said by the age of 3 years old, most of the inner beliefs that we have are stored in the shadow. By three, think about that. So young, crazy. Um, so when you think about the shadow, let's go back to that little kid who's running in with the kindergarten with the finger painting, right? So that little girl is saying, or that child, girl or boy, is saying, "Oh, mommy says, get out of the room, turn the lights off." Da, 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 da." And then I walk out of that room and I say to myself, "There's something wrong with me. Mommy hates me." Those two thoughts alone would create such a terrible shaming feeling. But let's just go with there's something wrong with me. Right? Let's just think about that for a minute. So if I feel that way when my mother yells at me and tells me to get out of the bedroom, there's something wrong with me, doesn't feel good. So I want to push it down in a way, and that gets dropped into the unconscious mind, or AKA shadow. So what happens then is it's sitting in there, doesn't go away. We think it's gone. It's gone from the conscious mind, which, as you know, it's about what, 10% of what we're actually aware of. 90% of how we show up, live, respond, react, and function in the world is from the unconscious mind, which is crazy to me. The adult chair is the conscious mind, right? That's why we need that consciousness to continue to expand. And when we have our adult, we're able to then start to work with the parts that are in the shadow. So do you want to go to triggers?
Oh, we can. Yeah.
I mean,
Would that be a great leap for now? Yeah, let's do it.
yeah, I mean, I think it is actually, because in working with the parts that are in the shadow would be trigger work. And what I have found over the years, when someone is triggered, I love this. It makes me laugh now. People would say, especially when I'd work with couples, I would work with some couples. I didn't work with a ton of them, but I'd love, well, I don't I mean, people in my family. I mean, anybody go, well, if
Yeah.
you would stop doing that thing, I would be less triggered. Right.
Right.
And I don't care if you're with a friend or a family member or your boss or whomever, like if they would stop doing that, I wouldn't be so triggered, which is absolutely backwards. And I didn't know it in the beginning part of my life, to your point, until I started working with this whole concept. I remember taking a Debbie Ford. You remember Debbie Ford? She passed away many years ago.
Oh.
She had talked all about shadow work, but gosh, it was probably 30 years ago I sat with her, but she was big into the shadow. And when we work with a shadow, what it reveals to us when we work with triggers, they reveal to us our unknown. And I know that this is a redundant statement. I don't care. I'm saying it anyway. It's our unknown unconscious beliefs about self. So they're unknown and unconscious. I know that means the same thing, but truly, when we're triggered, what's happening is these beliefs about ourselves is rising up on a silver platter for me to look at, work with, and integrate into self and transform it. It's like it's sitting right here. Do you want it or not? And most humans say, you're a jerk. You made me feel that way. It doesn't feel good. I'm mad at you. And then I'm going to call my friend and my sister and my family member and all these people to validate that you were the problem. And then what happens is that beautiful belief starts to move back down. It just slowly fades back into the unconscious mind again. And it becomes unknown or out of our consciousness. So when we're triggered, this is why I preach this. I preach it like crazy. Triggers are a gift because they help us to become more in balance, and live more peaceful lives. We're more stable. And we are literally, I speak from experience. I was an emotional roller coaster in my 20s and late teens. I didn't know it. Like if I had gone to a therapist today or in my 20s, if I'd found a good one, because I couldn't find a good one back then, but they would have said, oh, emotionally dysregulated all over the place. In fact, I remember going to a therapist many, many years ago. They're like, oh, you might have bipolar disorder. I was like, what? What are you talking about? I did not have bipolar disorder. What I had was an issue with not knowing what to do with my triggers. And I was triggered a lot. And I can tell you, I'm hardly ever triggered anymore. I live with more peace and balance now because I know what to do when I'm triggered. So in the book, I have it's one of the pillars is working with your triggers. I own my triggers. I manage my triggers. I take people through a whole experience of how you work with triggers. And it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. But the gist of it is when you're triggered, you ask the question, and this takes you out of the victim seat and puts you in the empowerment seat. You go from, why did that happen to me? Why did they say that to me? That made me feel bad. Instead, we ask the question, I wonder why this is happening for me. What's coming up for me? For me. It's my stuff. And that's where people need to get clear on triggers. It's always our stuff. It's always our stuff. And here's the thing. I've had people argue with me about this. They're like, that's not true. It can't be every single time. It's our
can't
stuff.
Be me.
Yeah. Like sometimes they're just mean people. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. If there are mean people out there in the world and they do something that's mean and hurtful to you and you're offended, you're hurt kind of thing. I understand that happens. I agree. If you walk away from that person and in 30 minutes to an hour or more, you're still talking about it. And the next day, you're still talking about it. You're still telling your friends about it. You're still looking. What's happening is the younger version of you unconsciously is looking for validation that it's not you. That's why we still talk about it, because it actually is a trigger. Think about that.
Yeah.
If somebody ticks me off, I'm going to be mad about it. They're mean, whatever. And I'm over it in an hour. It's like, okay, I'm done. If I'm carrying it with me, it's because it's a wound that's mine. It's like the scab's been torn off. It's an opportunity to look at and go, what's coming up for me? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember this one's loaded because when I was listening to your podcast a few years ago and you were talking about triggers, I was like, oh man, it's me.
Dang it.
It's me. And I specifically remember a situation in my life that was happening right when I was listening to you. And that idea of basically, it was almost like Byron Katie might have been in my head as well. Do you know her work on Loving What
I've
Is?
seen her. Yes, speak. She's beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, it's similar. The trigger idea where you just, if you think it's them, it's actually you. And I tried on this.
Mm-hmm.
But it is. So it's hard to get to that point where you're willing to confess, I guess, or to acknowledge that it's me. But once I leapt over that, and was willing to do that work, it does actually take the sting, because the thing about it is, I guess I was in victim mode before.
Yep.
And if I bring it back to myself, then the thing I was looking for, because I wanted control. So if I brought it back to myself, then I did have choices.
Yep.
If it's about the other person, I don't have choices. I can't control what's going on over there, but I can make decisions about what's happening here. That was a huge, huge turning
Absolutely.
point. So, and on the shadow too, in my spiritual direction training, our teacher, I think Carl Jung actually said this, the shadow is the long bag we drag behind ourselves.
I did not know that he said that.
Yeah. Isn't that an amazing image? It's the
Well,
long bag we drag
okay.
behind ourselves.
Have you heard me say this? I'm so happy to hear this because I did not know he said
Oh,
that. What I
yeah.
say, and I've said this for years, is and I used to have this when I saw clients in person, a cement suitcase. And I would ask
Oh,
my clients, are you done carrying that cement suitcase around? Because I mean, I would work with people and they would, and I had this, I talk about it in the book, like the same story over and over. And it would just keep them so stuck. And I had a suitcase in my office and I filled it with bricks. No joke. One of the little smaller suitcases, right? And I would say to my clients when they come in and talk about it, when they get ready to leave, they'd pay. And I'd say, grab that suitcase with you and take it with you everywhere you go. And I'll see you next week. They go, well, what's that? I'm like, that's that thing you keep talking about. You're dragging that around with you everywhere you go. So when you're ready to let it go, we'll let it go. And they bring it back the next week. They're like, I'm not talking about it anymore. I'm done. It's heavy. I said, you're darn right it's heavy. You're choosing to carry that around. You are in the seat of the victim, which is the adolescent chair.
yeah.
I said,
Oh,
when you're ready, drop that suitcase and be free. You are the only one that can be free. I can't free you. No one else can free you. You free you. And you got to make the decision to let it go. And I'm not saying we don't have to do work around some things to let it go. You know, sometimes you got to beat a pillow. You got to do forgiveness work. You've got to cry it out. You've got to journal about it. You got to have a conversation with somebody. All those things might need to happen. But at some point, you got to let it go for yourself, for nobody else. It doesn't hurt anybody else. No one else is thinking about this thing but you. Right?
Right. Oh, Michelle, can I tell you, this is a very, very, very recent story. It happened literally last week.
Yeah.
And because I had just read your book and I knew that I was having a conversation with you, this was all top of mind. So my husband and I, our anniversary is next month. We're going to be married 40 years.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's like forever. I can't even believe it. I've been dating this man for 42 years.
Oh my gosh. You definitely do not look old enough to have been married 40 years.
Well,
that's crazy.
Thank you. Thank you, Zoom filters or whatever this is. All that to say. So last week, we actually took a week to celebrate our anniversary because we went out of the country and we wanted to go while the weather was nice. And so we went to Cancun, and the first day that we created an event for ourselves, we were supposed to take a ferry out to this little island. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to sit on the top of the ferry. I'm going to feel it's the first day, like it's your anniversary. I'm going to sit on the top. The wind's going to blow through my hair. I'm going to look out at the sun and the ocean. I had my whole thing planned.
Like on the Titanic.
Yes. It was just a ferry, but I mean, it was, but it was open air, but there was also stuff inside. I'm thinking, I don't want to be one of those people that sits inside the boat. How boring. And so we get there and we didn't understand the line, and we ended up being almost the very last person on the boat.
Oh no.
Which I know. So that meant I was sort of indoors. It was kind of open behind me. I was sitting in the front row, and in front of us was like this little walled off spot, or like roped off. And there was a man sitting there with some suitcases. I'm like, what is he doing? Is he like the security? My husband and I are sitting there, and I was mad the whole time, like, oh, look at all those people are cutting in line, and now I'm going to be last. And I wasn't going to get what I wanted. And I was really mad. Maybe you could say I was triggered. I don't know.
I think you might have been.
Because I didn't get what I wanted. So I'm sitting in my chair fuming. I was mad at my husband because he didn't make it happen, which wasn't even his. What's he going to do? So, but I remembered what you said, and I stopped because I remember, I think it was in the adolescent section.
Mm-hmm.
You said emotions want to flow through in about 90 seconds.
Always.
Okay. So I thought, oh, Michelle said they're going to be I'm angry. Maybe the anger has already flowed through because I've been nursing this now for 10 or 15 minutes. So I paused really quick. I dropped into my body, and in my body, I did not sense any anger. And so then I thought, I must be in my adolescent chair because my adolescent chair is still writing the narrative of how mad we are because I'm sitting in the wrong chair and I don't get the breeze and there's no sunshine. I just kept going on and on and on and on. But once I checked in with my body and I realized I wasn't actually still angry, I just dropped it. I'm not even angry. What am I doing? I'm writing a story. And then right as I'm having this inner dialogue with myself, the man in front of us pulls out a saxophone and starts playing a song by the Police. I just looked at my husband and we burst into laughter because like how much more ridiculous could this ferry ride get? Now I've got a front row to some guy playing a saxophone in my ear. So I know it's a silly story, but I think it's very day to day, right?
Yeah.
You're living your life. You're trying to have a fun time on a boat. It doesn't go the way you want. You get mad. And then I extended it until I realized I don't need to extend it. My anger is already gone. What am I doing?
Isn't that so cool? So your child had anger. We could say, I don't know, maybe there was something under it because we stack our emotions. But the reason it was staying is you were lost in story. You make up a story about why you're having the emotion. It's like on top of the emotion. That's so beautiful. So you let go of the story, the emotion runs through you and it's over.
It's over.
It's so beautiful.
It was, and it worked. Immediately we were laughing because now the music is playing. And how can I be mad when this guy is playing saxophone right in front of my face? But you know what else? Yeah.
It's like we have experiences like that to mirror and reflect back to us how far we've come, how far we've grown, where our blind spots are, but also times when it's necessary or we could celebrate. So to me, that's a celebration.
Yeah.
That's a celebration, It's like something, quote unquote, that was bad or not, that didn't make you happy, happened and you worked your way right out of it. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. Like, how great is that? And you got to see yourself have an emotion and let it go. How great.
It's amazing. And I think that I loved having your framework in my mind at that moment because I think it actually made it even a little snappier for me to make the decision because I had fresh in my mind that it was my adolescent who was extending the emotion.
Yeah.
Even though I've done this kind of work before in the past in different ways, this new frame or your refreshed version of the framework just made it happen for me in a way that felt very accessible. I think that's what I'm trying to say, to encourage other people. You've made it very accessible.
Oh, well, I'm so glad. Thank you.
Yeah.
So glad. Cool. That's such great. I'm so glad to hear that. That is what it's all about, isn't it?
Right.
When we learn something new, we want to be able to apply it right away. And the way I think is, I realize I'm very simple-minded. Like I need to simplify it for myself. So the way I write is the same way. And people do say that, like, it's so easy to understand. I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad. Thank you. Yeah. So glad to hear that. Congratulations. You dropped the cement suitcase. What do you know?
I did. I dropped it right there on the front of the boat.
You did. next to the guy with the saxophone.
It was so funny. And he had one of those big speakers that had like the background music and then he was playing the melody. It was hilarious. Anyway,
I love laughing. Good for you. That's awesome.
Oh gosh. Well, is there anything else we want to say? We did the child chair. Is there anything else you want to say about the adolescent chair?
Just that it's not bad. A lot of people say, oh, I don't want that anymore. I want to, can we explode? I've had so many people over the years say, I want to get rid of it altogether. I'm like, no, it provides contrast to help us to see better who we are. We do want to balance it and bring it into balance. We need our ego. The ego is the part of us that pushes us forward, that stops us at the stop sign, all those things. We just don't want it to be driving our car. We want it in the back seat. We want the adult driving the car, right?
Yeah. So I think it's easy I really recognize the adolescent chair and I realized I was living in it mostly up until midlife, until the great undoing. And then
we're still in and out of it all the time now. The thing is we want
evidenced by last week.
We want to be out of it more than in it. And the more aware we are of what each chair is all about, the more we can work our way out of it. And the more in balance we live, the more peaceful we live, the more happy we live. All of those things start happening. There again, our relationships improve. Everything starts improving the more we're in that adult chair.
Well, then we've come through the child, the adolescent, maybe some just other thoughts on the adult chair. How can we?
Yeah.
I heard you say this the other day on, I think it was Instagram. You did a reel and you were talking about someone who said, I'm in my adult chair now for the last 2 or 3 months, right? And you're like,
really?
no.
How'd you do that?
So maybe talk to us a little bit about that. What does it look like to most of the time be functioning in your adult chair? We do a ebb and flow, but what does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. We're up and down. So in my adult, I'm going to reach for fact and truth in the moment. I'm going to live in the moment. Think about it. So if you think right now, well, next week, I got to think about this presentation I'm doing and blah, 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 and all the things. You're not in the moment. It's not to say you shouldn't plan for the future, but you're not sitting in the moment. Just to sit in the moment, you're not in the future and you're not in the past. So when we're truly in the adult, we are in the moment. I am trusting. That is such a huge word. We live with trust that everything's happening in divine time, that everything that's showing up is perfectly aligned. It's divine, every single thing. And even when it doesn't look good to the ego, because remember, the ego is what judges it good or bad. The soul's here for the experience. The ego is going to go, that's good, that's bad, that's good, that's bad. But when I trust that even when something doesn't look pleasant or good, that I'm still going to trust it because I know it's here for me for a reason. That's the adult. So the adult lives in fact and truth. So again, if I'm lost in story, I'm going to say, wait a minute, what's fact and truth right now in this very moment? It's like, oh, it's sunny outside. The thing I'm stressing about may or may not happen, because oftentimes we worry and people have anxiety. We're thinking about what's going to happen in the future or what may not happen, when I can reorient into the moment and say, okay, what's true right now? Well, I really don't know what's going to happen. There's a chance this may happen and that, but I don't know. So what I do know is I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you, and this is a delightful conversation. Feel that. And we feel it in the body. It's about the body too. When I'm in my adult, I'm not living what I call chin up. I'm living chin down, and I'm bringing my full experience. So with my adult, I live with self-compassion. I manage my triggers. I set healthy boundaries. I live with self-compassion, self-care. I learn how to love myself. All these beautiful things. I apologize. And I know how to take an apology, and I let it land on me. Again, I live more from my body. I live from a heart space. It's not airy fairy either. It's not like, oh, you're so hard. No, I can be very boundaried and strong. And you're going to go, and you would say to me, damn, that's your adult. Yes. I'm very clear. I'm direct, or not. It's more about this energy of being in the moment and being really clear. And sometimes I'm not clear, and I can still be in my adult, but I claim that I'm not clear right now. So, right? Yeah, I'm aware that I'm not clear. This is what's interesting. I was talking earlier about I'm overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, I'm eating ice cream. Now I'm sitting in front of Netflix. And then 5 hours later, I stand up and go, where have I been? Oh my gosh, I'm sitting in front of Netflix. That's the adolescent, because the key word was I'm unaware of what I'm doing. In my adult, and I'll say this to my husband, because I normally don't eat a lot of starch and carbs and gluten, honestly. And I'll say to my husband, here's the facts and truth. I know I'm having a bad day. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I got a lot on my plate, and I'm going to order a pizza. So I'm very aware of what I'm doing and the choices that I'm making. And I'll say, and I'm in my adult, and I know this, and I want to order a pizza. And I'll go, it must be a really bad day. I'm like, it is. And I know that when I eat a pizza, I'm going to feel a little bit numbed out, and that's okay. So that's my adult, because I'm fully aware of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, versus, oh my gosh, I just ate a whole pizza and I've been sitting here for 2 hours. I don't even know what I was doing. Or I just drank 2 bottles of wine. People that say that, it's like, wait, hold on. Are you aware of what you're doing, or you're not aware? So there's a level of awareness that comes with the adult. Here's a great example too. I can't remember if I put this in the book. I picked up my kids at school. I drove them home. I engaged with my children the whole way home. I walked in the house and walked. I can still see it like it was yesterday. This is probably 15 years ago. I walked directly all the way into the pantry. I had a walk-in pantry, and I grabbed my chips, and I stood in the pantry. I started eating chips. I was just sitting there looking around the pantry in a daze, eating chips. Mind you, I engaged with my kids the whole way home in the car. Everything seemed fine. And I'm eating chips. And I can still see it. I was like mid chip to mouth. And I go, what chair am I in? I asked myself that question. What chair are you in? What chair am I in? And I said, hold on. And when I asked myself that question, it's like my reality opened up. I came out of this dream state. I was in this unaware state, is the dream state, right? The unconscious state. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm in my adolescent. And I said, wow, what's going on here? What am I doing? And I put the chips down for a minute and I sat with it. I did this processing work in my pantry, standing there. And I said, what am I feeling? What happened? And I just sat there for a moment and I started tracing my timeline backwards. And I said, that girl, when I picked up my kids from school, that girl said something to me and I didn't like it. She wasn't really nice. She had some snide remark toward me or my kids. I can't even remember what it was, but I remember there was some mother there that made some remark to me and I didn't like it. It was hurtful. And I didn't say anything to her. I just grabbed my kids. We left. We had a lovely ride home. I got home and that was churning around inside of me. So I sat with her and I said, okay, what did she say? And I can't remember. I would tell you, I just can't remember. But I sat with her, I said, let me feel that. How did that comment that she made make me feel? And I sat with it. I said, oh, it was something like, I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough. I think it was something like I wasn't included in something around school or wasn't invited. I can't remember, but it's something around like not included. And I just sat and felt it. Okay. So I don't feel included. How does that feel? Doesn't feel good. Didn't feel good. Felt it and let it be there. That's where, as humans, we have to get really good at let it be there, even when it doesn't feel good, because emotions are just an energy that want to process and metabolize like food through us and out of us. So I sat with it. I felt it. I go, ugh, doesn't feel good. It ended. I've never sat with a client in all these years, whether I was on stage or in person or wherever with people. And I would sit with them and say, feel that. And they go, I don't want to feel it. And I'd sit with them and feel it. I've never had somebody that when it felt bad, it didn't end. Ever. They really do process through us in 90 seconds. If we don't make up a story and we don't go, oh, I'm feeling that because of this, and we keep the story going like you were doing on the ferry, when we don't have a story, we just let the emotion feel, we just feel it. It does process right through. So I did that in the pantry, my process trigger work in the pantry. And then it was gone. And I said, okay, now what's true now? I said, oh, what's true is that woman hurt my feelings. What she said doesn't feel like true. Does that feel like truth anymore? I'm like, it doesn't. Like, I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person, whatever story I was making up. And then I said, okay, am I ready to let that go? Is there anything there that I need to process? No, it was when I tell you, Gem, it was like gone, 100%, just gone. And I looked at the chips and I said, I don't even want these things. This is so weird. What am I doing? I don't want these things. And I rolled them back up and put them away. And I walked out and engaged with my kids and it was over. It took 5 minutes. Yeah. But that was a trigger work. That was triggers. That was overeating. All these things that I went through in 5 minutes. But when you have the tools, and I know we started here, but when you have the tools, then you know how to navigate your life in a different way and you can live with more emotional balance. So I didn't keep eating. I didn't get angry. I didn't carry that with me. It was over and done and moved on. And I didn't think about it again. So fun.
Consciousness.
That's the power of the adult right there.
Yes. I love what you said about the adult with being in the present. Yeah. Sometimes I didn't know it in the way you were saying it, but I think it's similar. I will sometimes when I find myself reaching to the past or the future, or I'm anxious in a blanket way, I'll just pause and I will just say out loud what my body is actually doing. And I felt like it was this little magic trick because I would relax immediately. I would say something like, I'm sitting in a chair, talking to Michelle. I'm in my office. I mean, literally, like, what am I doing right now? And if I say 4 or 5 things about what's actually occurring, my body actually downshifts. And I just think that's such a really simple way to
Yeah.
become present. Just acknowledging what's actually happening right now. Because then my brain stopped doing whatever, the forward or the backward.
Yeah. You say simple, like, oh, this is a glass of water. This
Right.
is my phone. This is a pen. But it does reorient you into the moment.
Right. Yeah.
And
It's
it's
really
boring. It's boring.
It's so boring. I'm
It's
sitting
so
in a chair
boring.
talking on Zoom.
Sometimes,
But
yeah,
it
there are times
really
when
works.
but being in the adult can be boring. And most of us, we don't do well with boring.
Yeah.
The ego's like, pick up your phone, look at social media. So many of us, right? We grew up in households where I know I had to learn how to be quiet and still because I grew up in a more chaotic household. I'm Italian. I grew up in the North. I mean, loud Italians. I keep looking at you. I'm using my hands all over the place. You're not. I'm like, sit on your hands, Michelle. But I'm like this. My husband, woo, like flatline. Like that was his emotions in his household. I'm like this. So I judged myself. There's something wrong with me because I'm too out there, too wild, too loud, No. And I had to learn how to be okay with not being in any sort of chaos. And our adolescent will create chaos and drama if that's what we're used to. And when you have more than one person say to you, pay attention to what people say. When I remember I was in my 30s and someone said, wow, there's a lot of chaos. Like you're always in drama. I was like, when I had more than one person say that to me, I pay attention, right? We pay attention. And I go, what are you talking about? And my friend said it. And then another friend said, yeah, you always have a lot of drama. I was like, I do. And I grabbed my, not a literal mirror, but figurative mirror. And I said, do I live with drama? And I said, wow, I do. That was that emotional roller coaster I was on all the time. And I said, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I don't want to do that anymore. I didn't know there was another way. I was on my roadmap. I was on the roadmap. Isn't that how most families are raised? And aren't you supposed to be on an emotional roller coaster? That was my norm. No, that's not normal. Now, my husband wasn't normal either. Well, again, I don't like normal, but healthy.
Right.
Flatline emotions, that's not healthy.
Right.
This is healthy. A little bit of up and a little bit of down, and then sometimes in the middle, and then a little bit of up and a little bit of down. That's healthy. Sometimes we have good days, sometimes bad, sometimes peaceful, but not extreme.
Right. Finding that middle place.
Yeah.
Where the waves are a little less chaotic.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so good. Well, I know that we have to wrap this up fairly quick. I wanted to touch boundaries in the inner critic, and I'm wondering if one of those stands out to you as something that might be good to talk about here as we move toward the end. Which do you think is better for us to look at?
Boundaries. I love boundaries.
Okay.
I've worked with boundaries for so long.
Talk to us about boundaries.
Okay, boundaries. Hold on. I want to give you, here's the thing with boundaries. And I talk a lot about this in the book, if you remember. Boundaries are so much more than a script. Boundaries are, I can give people scripts all day long. It doesn't mean you know how to set a healthy boundary. Boundaries are what I would call energetic. And that's not, I don't mean woo-woo when I say energetic, but there's an energy to a boundary. You have kids?
Yes. 3 sons.
Okay. So sons. When your kids, they can be children or adults, you can give them the mom look like, are you kidding me? Right? You just have a look on your face and your boys will go, uh-oh. But you're not saying a word. What is that? They're feeling your energy. Mm-hmm. You can walk into a room where 2 people have been fighting. You walk in and you feel the dense energy. Our world is made of energy. Humans are made of energy. Our thoughts, emotions, our feelings are all energy. So boundaries need an energy to them, or you will get blown over like a tree with no roots. So how do we then have strong, healthy boundaries? It's again, I worked with people for so long with boundaries, and I had to figure out, number one, why weren't mine sticking when I was in my 20s and 30s? And I figured it out. I feel like I figured out the magic formula of boundaries, honestly. I did a whole I have a course on my website on boundaries because of this. You need to have healthy self-worth in order to set boundaries. Okay, so I love that we started out with confidence, right? You're talking about confidence. when you start building healthy self-worth, boundaries become more natural. Because think about this. Think about this. If you walk into the jewelry store, where are the diamonds, the most precious diamonds? They're in the back. They've got an alarm. Why? Because they're valuable. They're protected because they're valuable. If you don't feel valuable, there will not be a very instinctual or innate response to protect yourself. Where do you get inner value? See, I just saw the light bulb moment, right? So when you start to feel self-worth and your inner value begins to build, your tolerance for allowing anyone to infringe on one of your boundaries becomes low, very low, actually. And what I have found is the more valuable I feel, the lower the tolerance I have for anybody bumping into my boundaries. And it doesn't mean, and again, the other thing is people have such a misconception of what a boundary is. Boundaries are not confrontational. And if I had $1 for every person that said to me, oh, I can't set a boundary, I'm not a confrontational person. Boundaries are not confrontational. They're not. Boundaries are simply statements. Sometimes they are requests. And also boundaries also teach other people how we want to be treated. That's it. That's it. So please, Gem, don't say that to me again when we're out to dinner. That made me feel very uncomfortable. Thank you so much. Period. Now, if I say that to you without energy in me, and the way we build inner energy is through inner worth, inner value. So if I say that statement to you, and it's coming from what I call chin up, which is just out of my head, you will not feel it as impactful as if I'm in my body and I'm speaking to you from my gut. Like, hey, Gem, you are one of my closest friends and I love you. However, when you said that to me the other night at dinner in front of everyone, it was very embarrassing. Please don't do that again. And there's an energy that I don't care if I'm on the phone, on Zoom. Again, I always encourage people to do it in person or on the phone if you can't do it in person. But there's an energy then that you will feel. If I have inner worth and value, you are less likely to push back on me. You are less likely to defend yourself because you're going to hear me. And it's like the mom giving her kid the look like, don't do that again, right? So you're going to feel and go, oh, and you're going to feel also there's a kindness there because I know who I am. And I'm not confrontational. I'm just requesting something from you. So, and there are more things to go with boundaries. I have a boundary cheat sheet for people that want to learn about boundaries. It's just michellchalfant.com/boundaries. It's a cheat sheet for how you set healthy boundaries. But again, that's free. If people want the course, they can go right to my website. And I'm actually teaching a whole course on self-worth in June. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, but boundaries, that is the magic potion with boundaries. It's not a boundary script. It's self-worth. It is inner value. And then there's a way in the course I actually teach people, how do you build out your inner value? What does that even mean? So I go through that in the whole course. But yeah, it's a really, really, I have found that is the game changer for people when it comes to boundaries. That's the missing ingredient.
The self-worth.
Self-worth. You have to have value. If you don't feel valuable, I don't care what I ask you to say. Well, go home and say this to your friend or your partner or your mother. People would go, I'd give them homework and they come back the next week and go, it didn't work. I'm like, oh, how'd you say it? And we'd role play. I'm like, yeah, there's no energy here. Of course that they pushed back because you don't believe in yourself. You don't find that you're valuable enough to even say that for yourself. Well, how do I do that? We got to build up your self-worth. You got to build up that inner value.
Yeah. So good. So good. Oh, well, I know that we could probably go on. There are many more things to say, but I guess what that means is people have to go out and get the book. It's behind you. It's behind you. Here's my copy.
The adult chair. Go get it. Anywhere books are sold.
Yes. It comes out in May, right?
May 6th.
May 6th. I think this is airing like just after that. So they can just go get it right then. That's going to be so good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Again, I love the model. It is simple. It's practical. I hope these are compliments.
Yeah, no, honestly, it is because it shouldn't be complicated.
Right.
It should not be complicated. It's
Right.
not.
You've given us some really good handholds to make our way forward. Some really good, and how to is not the right word, but you do offer a lot of how to. Here's a journal prompt. Here's some questions you can walk through to guide yourself in here. So it's packed full, and I've been thrilled to be able to finally meet you. I told you before we started recording that I had followed you and learned so much from you, from this model, from triggers. And actually, one time there was a podcast episode you did years ago, and it was how to end a friendship.
Yes.
And that one was so good because I didn't need to end a friendship at the time, but I was so intrigued by how gracious you were in that, and how you're talking about sometimes there's just seasons, and sometimes you're in your life and then you're out, but nothing went wrong and nothing happened. But here's a cool way to like just release yourselves. And actually, many years later, it worked for me. There was a friendship. It was beautiful in season. And then for whatever reason, both of us, we just sort of floated away from each other. But I remembered what you said. And so I just sort of made contact, and we touched base, and I had a chance to say thank you for who you were, who you are. Do you know what I mean? I just thought the information that you gave on that episode, had to be at least 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember how long ago.
I love that.
It was a great episode.
It was a while ago. I do remember that. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that it was so impactful for you.
It was funny because I didn't need it at the time, but I thought it was such good wisdom. I tucked it away, and then like 4 or 5 years later, I needed it, and it was there. And I just felt like I was able to keep a friendship that was ebbing and flowing, sort of intact in its way at the time.
Oh my gosh.
And to release it. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the ways that you've spoken to my own heart personally.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you. I'm honored. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me on the Unhurried Living Podcast. You can download free resources and learn more about us at unhurriedliving.com. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'd love it if you'd share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. You'll also find many helpful links in the show notes so you can get to know us better, as well as our partner, Life Audio, and all of their other faith-centered podcasts. Remember, you're making your way forward one small, simple, and gracious step at a time.